different theme and intro for every single show. I like it. Our little countdowns.
Everyone has been good too recently. I mean, the first one a couple weeks ago just threw me off because it was so
Mhm.
unexpected.
Yep.
But I like it. I was like kind of came in aggressive there, like put the radio voices back on for a sec.
It was good. No, it was good. So obviously going to get into NBA free agency, some trades that went down, obviously a lot to catch up on here on the Drive and Dish NBA podcast, but 3 warm-up jumpers that we wanted to get into before we start the show. The first one that I think was the most random Woj bomb that, well, I guess it wasn't technically, he retweeted it, but either way, the most random news that you could have ever gotten on a Wednesday night. Adam Schefter posting that 35-year-old J.R. Smith is enrolling at North Carolina A&T State University to pursue a degree in liberal studies, but also waiting on the NCAA to sort out his eligibility so that he can play on the golf team.
Well, that's what I kind of wondered because J.R. Smith, I mean, he played college
Yeah.
basketball, correct? I don't think he was a straight from high school kid. I'm going to double check that now. But that's what I wondered with his eligibility. Now, this is incredible. I remember J.R. Smith when the Cavs and the Warriors were always playing in the finals. Once you get to summertime, he and Steph Curry would both just transition into like golf mode and actually like legit hang out with PGA guys and stuff like
Mhm.
that. J.R. Smith did enter the NBA out of high school, actually. So yeah, he's probably
Interesting.
eligible. He's got to be eligible though. He's never played any D1 sport. It doesn't matter what age you are if you've never played.
Yeah, I mean, if he's never played, he's got the eligibility. Why not go play basketball in college?
Because why on earth would J.R. Smith go play D1? I don't think that's.
Dude.
I'm pretty sure there has to be a rule against that, right?
I don't know, like, because he played I mean, why not?
LeBron's going to go back to college too. Kevin Garnett, post his career, could have done the same thing.
That'd be so fun. That'd be so fun. I'm sure kids would really like that, though. Like, kids that were, like, you know, on the team or whatnot, unless you're the one that gets cut because LeBron James is coming back to play on the team.
Kids would sign up to get dunked on by LeBron.
For sure. I think it would be a fun situation. Now, I mean, it's cool. I mean, why not? It's just not something I thought we would be hearing about today.
No, this completely came out of left field, but it's just J.R. Smith. What makes J.R. Smith lovable is just how eccentric he is, and this just kind of adds to it here, where it's like J.R. Smith is 35 years old. He's a 2-time NBA champion. This man is a multi-millionaire. He could just be chilling, and instead he's decided he's going to go back and try to do collegiate golf. Why not? That's the thing. Why not?
Well, and a lot of people were like, why would he go for liberal studies? And I was like, I don't think this dude necessarily needs to worry about a career path. Like,
no,
he's good.
I don't really know what liberal studies means exactly. Like, I know what liberal arts is, obviously, but that's usually like specific. You know what I mean? Like, it's a, you know, I don't really, I mean, maybe you can, I guess, but I don't really know anyone that has ever majored in liberal arts. So I am kind of cracking up in the sense that, like, what does that mean? But I'm never going to go against, you know, furthering your education and doing all that. So, like we said, JR didn't go to college; he went straight out of the league. So, go and get your degree. I will never ever be hating on anyone who tries to further their education.
No, I think it was kind of cool. Just random news that we would have never seen or never thought to see. Like nobody had that one on their bingo card.
No.
The other other warm-up jumper that I wanted to get into is Giannis is coming out with a biography. Believe it comes out. It actually should already be out now, according to the when this tweet came out. So there's a part that he talks about Jason Kidd and a situation that happened after a loss the day before Christmas Eve. And Giannis's, the part of the book that was highlighted was players returned to the locker room dejected, silent. Everyone was ready for the next 2 days off. Jason Kidd turns to Zaza Pachulia and asked him, do you think this was a winnable game? Which Pachulia responded, yes, I think it was winnable. And then Kidd apparently goes, and do you think we deserve the next 2 days off? And apparently that got everybody in the locker room's attention. And from what Giannis or the book is saying is Zaza had a very diplomatic response saying, I think I understand the frustration. It was a game we should win, but it's Christmas. It's a family holiday. It's not about us. It's about our families, blah, blah, blah. Guys have made plans. Well, then Jason Kidd apparently turns to Jarrett Dudley, and says, what do you think? And apparently Dudley gives the same response. Kidd then responds, see you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m. And apparently players were not very happy about that. And apparently the next morning, the practice was really ugly. You can go and read more about it. I don't want to keep going, but there are some things that have come out about it to the point that a lot of people are like, yo, Kidd should not be near a team anytime, like anymore.
No, and that's what we've been saying all along. I don't know why Jason Kidd continues to get head coaching opportunities. This guy stinks. He wasn't good in Brooklyn. He wasn't good in Milwaukee. Like, as great as he was as a player, he's obviously a Hall of Fame caliber player, but
Sure.
He's had a ton of issues off the court. And now here's Dallas going to hire Jason Kidd and entrusting him with Luka Doncic, who obviously is somebody that we have a tremendous amount of faith in going forward, who just signed this 5-year supermax extension for over $200 million. What on earth would you pair Luka with Jason Kidd for? Like, if you're going to lose a great coach like Rick Carlisle, you better replace him with somebody that's good. Jason Kidd, to me, is an objectively bad head coach. And also, just like, this is kind of one of these things, like, what is this ticky-tack BS doesn't work in the pros? Like, this isn't college. This isn't high school. It's Christmas. Like, really, you're going to make your guys run wind sprints on Christmas? Like, it's just garbage. It's stupid garbage. And Milwaukee got instantly better as soon as they brought Budenholzer in and let Jason Kidd go. And they're better off with Budenholzer than they are with Jason Kidd. And it's remarkable to me, again, that Jason Kidd got another job like he did in Dallas. Unfortunately, that's a problem the Mavs are going to have to deal with.
Well, and I wonder if, it was a little bit of like, Kidd can kind of mentor Luka a little bit, but you kind of hope he doesn't go back to the ways that we're reading about now in this book that came out not too long ago, which is obviously a horrible, horrible look for Jason Kidd. And yeah, I mean, if I'm anyone on the Mavs, I'm looking at it like, whoa, what the heck? And hopefully you don't start seeing similar things. And look, maybe Jason Kidd learned, maybe he has learned in the few chances that he's gotten that he needs to approach it differently. And if that's the case, then sure, it's a great story of improving yourself and getting better. But, if you've already rubbed some players the wrong way, I'm sure Luka and maybe a bunch of other Mavs players already kind of knew about this story, Yeah,
and I just think there's better coaching prospects out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and number one, I don't think Luka needs a mentor. I think he's already super good. I think he needs a good head coach, somebody that's going to help the Mavericks. I don't think Jason Kidd is that. I just don't care. Like, I guess that's my thing is, like, Jason Kidd's had plenty of shots at a redemption story. I don't need a Jason Kidd redemption story. Like, not when there's a billion other qualified head coaches out there who I think who are way more deserving of that opportunity.
Sure. No, I agree with you. And it's just, it was wild to read that was going on in general, Yeah,
it's a bad look. It's a terrible look for Jason Kidd. It's exactly, I mean, he was yelling and cursing at Larry Sanders, apparently, telling him he was terrible. It's just not what you want out of your head coach.
No, I completely agree. So, and apparently, with Larry Sanders, there was, it got kind of serious, which again, you can go read more about it. I mean, it was literally trending on Twitter, Wednesday. So you can go back and see some of the highlighted things, or maybe go get the book for yourself if you're interested in reading more about it.
Yeah, what do we got for warm-up jumper number 3?
Warm-up jumper number 3 is just Team USA. Talking about it in general. Obviously, they won. The videos were going around, and everybody. I feel like I saw a bunch of photos of the players out and about, showing off the medals. And I guess this is the part where I say, honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that we got here because it wasn't looking great at the beginning.
I'm surprised and I'm not. Like, you're right. It didn't look great at the beginning. They avenged the earlier loss to France. They were able to get through group play. They handle business. Like, it just comes down to what I said at the beginning before the Olympics started. And what Kevin Durant basically said afterwards, yes, the world is significantly better at basketball now than they were. Like the days of the dream team where the USA
Sure.
is just beating every single team by 60, 70 points, those days are over. There are plenty of teams that they're going to play in the Olympics every year that have legitimate NBA talent. France, who they beat in the gold medal game, had plenty of NBA players on it. Australia, who got bronze, who we'll
Yep.
get to in a little bit, had plenty of NBA players on it. But at the same token, the United States wasn't remotely fielding the best team you could potentially field. Like everyone knows those weren't the 12 best players that the United States has to offer. It just doesn't matter. Like
Well, and
the talent disparity is so large that even once they just figure out a little bit of chemistry, which I don't think they had in the beginning, and once they were able to work Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, and then Devin Booker in the lineup post the finals, they just clicked and remembered that, hey, we are the United States. We're better than everyone else at this still. Like, this is our game.
well, and I think it was ESPN proposed the question because there was some debate as to whether or not the players were passionate about playing for Team USA and whether or not they were giving it their all. And they asked Brian Windhorst, do you think it should be a situation where you go and get college kids and younger players to play in this? And I kind of agreed with him, which his statement was, no, like this is the Olympics. This is the world stage. You're supposed to field the best people from your country. So why not do that? And so I kind of agreed with him on that.
I mean, it makes it better. They used to back
Yeah.
in the day, and there was the same thing with hockey. Is they used to,
Yeah.
you'd get amateurs, you'd get college guys, and that would just be the squad. Where now, but I mean, to me, the product has gotten better since they've added, NBA professional
Yeah.
players around the league. Look at like Slovenia, for example, what having Luca did and I mean, imagine if he wasn't on that squad, that wouldn't have been a feel good story like we saw in the Olympics. Imagine if, Patty Mills, who is an Olympic legend for Australia, couldn't go. Imagine if our boy Matisse Thybulle couldn't go for
Yeah.
Australia, who's now even more of a folk hero down there. Like, it's better when these guys are on the world stage. And I do think guys care about playing for the USA. Like when I look at the best players in the league, it's not like they haven't played in the past. Like LeBron James has won multiple gold medals with the
Yeah.
United States. Like there are other elite talent guys who didn't play or just in certain situations, like Bradley Beal, for example, was on the roster, but then wasn't able to go. But there's still plenty of star power here. I mean, you have the best player in the world, arguably, in Kevin Durant on this roster playing
Hmm.
here, ready to go. Dame Lillard is there. Devin Booker is there. Like there are plenty of guys on this roster. Zach LaVine. I mean, all the way down to 12. The worst player on that roster is who? Jeremy Grant, who was a borderline all-star, and Keldon Johnson, who played a ton of great minutes for San Antonio this year. Like, those would be arguably top 2, top 3 guys, top 1
Hmm.
guys on a lot of other Olympic rosters. So, do I think that this USA roster was necessarily as talented as others in the past? No, I don't. I think the '08 team, for example, would have blown the doors off this squad. It just still doesn't matter. They have
Yeah.
enough still, as long as the US can continue to field enough high-end talent, there are going to be guys who are going to want this opportunity. That's the thing. As the old guard starts to stop, like, do I think they're going to get Kevin Durant in the next Olympics? Probably not. But do I think there are going to be plenty of other young guys who are willing to step up and take over that mantle, that opportunity? Absolutely, I do.
Well, and I kind of view it as, a passing of the torch in a way. So it is cool for like a LeBron and Carmelo to take a step back and let the newer guys get in there and get some fresh faces on the team and get that experience. I think it's cool to see from selfishly from like a basketball fan standpoint.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, I want the tournament to have the most talent as possible. Like I want all these teams to be fielding their best players. And
Agreed.
I think it was competitive overall. Like we said, the world. That's me saying the USA is just better than everyone. It's not a shot at the world. Like these other
Yeah.
games were super
Well,
entertaining.
what
Like I
was
said, Australia, Slovenia for the
yeah,
bronze medal was
that was a good
extremely
one.
entertaining. France was battling as well. I mean, that was a 5-point game at the end of it. I mean, the USA got real sloppy at the end of that gold medal game. So,
Hmm.
it's not like these are all blowouts. It's not like it's not entertaining. I mean, shout out to the women. The USA women's team has won 5 straight golds now, but
Yeah.
like that's even more of a lock. You know what I mean? So it's like at least with the men, there's a little more, I guess, in a sense, parity there. With the women, there's just never a planet where there's really, really never a planet where the USA women should ever be losing a basketball competition in any single format.
Oh yeah, they were killing it. And so, it was cool and I got to talk to uh, different sport. Michelle Moultrie, who was on the USA softball team.
Mhm.
She played on their team. They got silver. Lost to Japan, I believe, if I
Yeah,
remember correctly.
yeah, that happened in baseball too. The USA lost to
Really?
Japan in both baseball and softball for got silvers in them and lost the gold medal
Is
game.
this a rivalry brewing? No.
I guess so. I mean, it's the first for Japan. This is shocking to me. It was the first gold medal for Japan in baseball, which is stunning because the
Yeah.
Japanese league is largely the second best after the MLB when it comes to baseball. Like a lot of former MLB guys go there. Like a lot of like AAA high end talent goes over there and they play
Mhm.
in Japan. So I guess I'm just a little surprised with the number of quality players that they've also imported here to America. That wasn't a little more competitive on that front. Um, I mean, the sport that it's probably most spread out with is NHL, just because NHL is a more, I don't think it's necessarily as global as basketball is in the sense that basketball touches every single continent. Like
Sure.
NHL, it's cold weather countries, obviously, that are really good at ice hockey. But I mean, when you talk about the NHL, I mean, the best guys are from Canada, they're from Russia, America, Czech Republic, all these other countries, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
Mhm.
Um, where in basketball it's like that a little bit as well, but the NHL, it's really like even and all over the place in terms of parity, like who can win every single year in and year out. We're not quite there with we're there with other sports, but I mean, like we said, definitely not with basketball yet. Did you have a particular favorite sport that you like to watch in the Olympics or this particular Olympics other than hoops?
I mean, Nicole and I she was big into watching the gymnastics. Obviously,
Mhm.
there was a lot of eyes on the gymnastics. A few people from Jacksonville were in the swimming, so we were kind of paying attention to that. This might sound horrible, and I don't know if it was just this year specifically because I don't remember feeling this way about the Olympics in the past. It's like I just didn't care.
No,
Like
I think it's a
I
lot of people, honestly. I don't think you're alone on that front.
I just couldn't get myself to care. Nicole would put it on. She's like, "We gotta watch it," and I'd be like, "I don't want to."
Yeah. And I mean,
Like,
I think part of it now with it being in Tokyo, I think knowing ahead of the time
that could help.
sometimes too,
Yeah,
because there is a 16-hour time difference. Now,
yeah.
granted, you also, I think, largely could avoid spoilers if you wanted. And some events were on in the morning. So if you're,
Yeah.
8, 9, 10 a.m. East Coast
Watched
time, you're able to watch some of them.
I saw a
Um,
weird amount of rowing the first week of the Olympics. Every morning when I was getting ready for the gym, I'd put it on. It'd be like rowing and whatever. But
the first week is always crazy. I mean, I watch a ton of swimming. I'm with you
yeah.
there. Shout out to Caleb Dressel, Ryan Murphy, Duval, what up? Um, there and then just I mean, they were always competitive. It felt Australia won a ton of swimming medals too. It felt like,
Yeah.
um,
Well,
so
because
swimming
what's
was
her
all
name took over, or beat, Ledecky,
yeah.
and had her trainer was going
Oh
crazy.
yeah, it was awesome. Like he lost it. He went 8th. Um,
Yeah.
I think that, but no, I'm with you. I watched a ton of Olympics early on, like in terms of the swimming and the basketball, but there was a lot I didn't watch. Like I didn't watch nearly as much track as I usually do. I also just think it's in the pandemic. Like this was supposed to happen last year. There's no fans in there, so I think the atmosphere isn't quite as electric.
Of course.
It's just kind of got lost in the sauce essentially, and I feel bad because obviously the Olympics are every 4 years. A lot of these athletes aren't, not everybody's Michael Phelps, not everybody's Simone Biles, not everybody is these
This could be
multi
their
Olympic
one
athletes.
time.
Like, yeah, this is their one shot, and they may not have been the stars that they would be otherwise. But no, I definitely don't think you're alone there. I think a lot of people weren't watching. Like, I watched a good amount of it, and I definitely felt like I was in the minority on that front.
And on top of that, I got what they were trying to do TV broadcast wise, where they would like have the parents on, but it was awkward. Like
Yeah.
it was hella awkward. It's like this is like a really nice family moment, and we're all just watching it now.
Well,
Like,
and it sucks that they're not there. Like, you want them
right.
to have it in person. Like, you just are
Well,
having
that's
to
what
do
I
this over
mean. Yeah.
screens.
Yeah, you didn't have that, and I got TV was trying to like create that, but it just did it was a swing and a miss in my opinion.
Yeah, this is also your friendly public service announcement from the Drive and Dish NBA podcast to go get vaccinated if you're not vaccinated, and so we could end the pandemic and continue to go back to normal life, especially as the Delta variant spreads. It's kind of a problem here in Florida, which I feel like is the understatement of the century. But if you're not vaccinated, please go get vaccinated. I'm not going to press you or curse you out or anything, but we strongly advise that you go and handle that as soon as possible if you have the opportunity. Welcome everybody to the Drive and Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
I don't get what's up with this not showering bleep. That's nasty as hell.
I agree. I don't know what's up with it either. And that all started from that, like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis said they only shower a couple of days or
No.
every couple of days, minus their other parts.
No, they only clean their kids when they can smell the stink.
Yeah, that's disgusting. I'm with. I don't know what NBA player tweeted this. I'm with them 100%. Like I don't understand. Like I love showering. It's legitimately one of my favorite things in the world. I don't know who on earth doesn't enjoy showering. Who wants to smell any type of odor like that? It is nasty. It's Hollywood people are just so weird sometimes, man.
Well, there's nothing like to me, there's no better feeling than after like a really good workout, like getting home and getting in the shower. Like that is like my favorite part about it. This was by the way, Montrezl Harrell tweeted that. Okay. And the other, I think this was in response to Jake Gyllenhaal, who came out and said that he doesn't see the allure of bathing daily. And I was just like, dude, come on, man.
The only need to be an allure, like
the only, and this is what someone pointed this out to me as I went on a rant on radio the other day. The only way that you can justify maybe not showering daily for Jake Gyllenhaal or a celebrity is they do live out in California and they do go through droughts pretty often. So if you're not going to shower to like quote unquote save water for that situation, sure, I can get behind that a little bit.
Yeah, except that's not why they're not showering. It's like give me a break. I don't want to hear it. Shower every day. You are disgusting if you don't shower. Like I don't even want to. Like if you don't shower, don't come up and talk to me. Like you already shouldn't be in my space anyway, given the pandemic right now. But if you have not showered, I do not want to be around you. Period. Like, I don't trust you if you don't shower.
There are days. Not saying that I go like a long time without showering, but there could be weekends where I'm having a real chill weekend where I hardly leave the couch that I might not shower from like, say I shower Friday night. The next time I shower is like Sunday night. You know, like you skip a day because you're chilling.
You're pushing it. I'm not gonna lie. You're right on the fact. If you were said like Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, because I get it. Like there are days where you're just busy. There are days where you've just been lounging around. I haven't done anything physical. But like I know for us in Florida, like if I go outside and I haven't showered, that's disgusting. If you're at Summer League in Vegas right now and you go outside and you insta sweat, which is gonna happen because it's probably like 110 degrees there right now.
So it was when we
ridiculousness. Like it's just nasty. It's nasty, bro.
I agree. And a lot of those situations I would shower if I did anything. But I was like a lazy POS and a horrible human in society and contributed nothing that weekend. You know what I mean? Like it's like most of the time I was just binge watching something and I maybe got up and cooked some food and then I went back to laying down. You know, you have those weekends. And
you're in your apartment though, at least. Right. Or you're in your house. Like
if I leave, then I'm showering. You know what I mean?
You're not an active functioning member of society. Yes. Like if you were doing that, you'd just be a degenerate at that point.
Yeah, what I do in that situation is, and if I've noticed it happens like maybe once every other month where there's just a weekend where I'm like, I just need to be away from everyone for the entire weekend. And I'm not going to talk to anybody. You know, I come into work on Saturday morning, I do my thing, we record this podcast, I go home and I'm done. I turn the phone off. I put on TV. I'd probably pass out on the couch for a while. Like I'm not doing anything. So
I didn't mean to turn this into Justin therapy, but Justin has a billion friends. Like literally has more friends than most people that I know. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing. It's an awesome thing. Like Justin obviously is extremely likable human being. Um does that get is that why you feel like do you feel like you need that weekend because it gets exhausting?
Uh, I don't think it's technically for that, but it's more just because, and you'll get this too, because our job is a lot of social media,
Mhm.
is being plugged in 24/7, expected to know everything about everything, it feels like, and have an opinion on everything, which is a whole nother level of it. I mean, like in all honesty, there could be times, and obviously it doesn't work for a podcast, but like there could be times where it's like said player goes to said team, and I'm just like, okay, but that doesn't work for a podcast. We have to have an opinion about it, So
Right.
like, so a lot of times it's just turning it off so that I don't have to form an opinion about something and just chill out and I'm just watching TV or I'm just disconnecting. And yes, you've noticed this because I do it to you a lot of times. I don't mean to, but I get so many texts throughout the day. In my head, I'll mentally respond, and then sometimes I don't. And
Oh yeah.
it could go days without me responding. And if like you will actually remind me, like, hey, just checking in on this, where I have friends that are petty as hell and they don't respond, and now they won't respond to me because I never respond to them. And I'm like, I didn't even realize I didn't respond to you. It's just I had so many things going on, and maybe like a boss asked me a question while I was reading your text and I forgot to respond. You know what I mean? Like it happens a lot, and it's
No.
just because I don't remember to respond, or I mentally do it in my head and don't.
No, I've known you for like 8 years now, and you've been so consistently bad at it that I don't take it personally. I don't remember.
I
You
have
just
friends
across
that
the
do.
board. It's not
I
just
have
me.
friends that do,
Well, of course. I mean, I understand that. And
and
I
I
also
get
with
it.
you. See, what I do is, see, I figured out how to get Justin to text back. The way to get Justin to text back is you use the iPhone emojis now. You can send the like the love
Yeah, the
reaction or the
question.
question mark reaction. So I'll just emphasize send you a question mark, and it's great with you because I know it's not petty. It's just like, yo, hey, just get your attention here
Reminder.
real quick.
Well, and
Just give me one.
a lot of times you'll do that, and I'll look at it and be like, oh, I didn't respond. I got to respond. I forgot to respond, and then I'll feel bad. So then I'll text you back. But usually that's the way it goes. So just taking a weekend to just be like, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm not forming any opinions that I don't have to. I'm just chilling here. I'm going to watch a TV show. It's usually some horrible TV show too. I watched a 1-star reviewed zombie movie on Amazon Prime last week, and it
Wow.
was everything I wanted it to be.
Was it worthy of 1 star?
Oh, dude. Yes, it was. It was a zombie movie, and then I watched another one that was like an invasion of aliens. This one actually had good stars, and I don't know why, but it was like these octopus things in the sky in the Amazon, and this guy was trying to get his boss's daughter back into the US. It was so bad, and it was so good.
That is hilarious. Speaking of 1 stars, leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad.
It's not a
Hopefully,
one
it's
star.
not 1 star. Go for we prefer 5 ones.
If you
But
give me a 1 star, I'm gonna have to take a whole weekend break again.
oh god, all right. Well then, for Justin's mental health, I'm going to read the 1 star reviews on the guest podcast. And leave us with that, good or bad. We'll read them on the show. If you're not an Apple user, we are everywhere you can find a podcast: Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, Player FM, TuneIn. Anywhere you find a podcast, we're there. Like Montrezl Harrell, though, going back to that, said it's crazy where it can go sometimes.
Mhm.
But please take a shower. It's pretty nasty if you don't. And what I was going to say is, I just think because I'm with you on the plugged in thing. Like I totally like, especially with me being in
Easy to
news.
break off, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a lie. And it could be if you can't tell, it can be a little intense sometimes. It's been election last year, just a little contentious here in America. Um, so yeah, I mean, this for me which is crazy because the Sixers constantly don't help my mental health at all. But this has always been like my therapeutic outlet. So I
Sure.
appreciate everybody who listens to this because if nothing else, if you take nothing else away from this podcast, if nothing else, you'll make me feel better for a week. Or for an hour a week. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's just it's nice to know there's some people that like talking basketball with us. I do enjoy that. Like, we were getting hit up about players doing well in the Olympics. And so, it's cool to have that, to know that there are people that are chilling out with us when we do talk basketball, even though it might not be literally when we're talking basketball. It's just the recording of us talking basketball. But no, that's why we're doing it, is because we know people are enjoying it and hopefully also disconnecting in a way. So
Yeah, and I mean, hey, we got season 8. Like we said, we're coming up soon. We are approaching fast once the regular season begins. So, shout out to everybody who's been rocking
listen,
with us.
listen, when we started this, I couldn't grow facial hair. So
Justin's acting like he was 16 years old when we started this, like he wasn't 23 at the time. You're the only person I know who can start growing facial hair in your mid-20s.
I did not start growing facial hair until 29.
There's people in Orlando that don't know me without a beard, which is pretty crazy to
Really?
think about. Because we didn't
That's
have video
crazy.
back in the day,
Yeah.
but I didn't have a beard the first 2.5 probably years we did the podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was probably like 2015-ish. I think late 2015-ish when I grew it, and just haven't gone clean shaven since. But you would know that if you watch the podcast on YouTube. Subscribe to the Driving Dish NBA channel, get the video version of the podcast, other fun stuff as well. And now a word from our sponsors.
So we wasted about half of our episode talking about bathing, but we're happy to get back and talk about NBA free agency and some of the trades that went down. Looking at NBA.com's free agency tracker, I don't think anybody's surprised, but it does seem as if the Lakers making the most transitions and bringing in the most players: Carmelo Anthony, Wayne Ellington, Malik Monk, Dwight Howard, Trevor Ariza, Horton Tucker, Kent Bazemore, Kendrick Nunn, to round them out. I mean, actually, now I'm looking at it, and I'd have to do the math. The Heat might have brought in more.
Mm-hmm.
They honestly might have. And so I might have spoken out of turn. It's very close. But Heat and Lakers making the most moves out of this. So let's start with the Lakers and everybody they brought in. Obviously, the big name going to be Carmelo Anthony, that people will talk about the most. And the age that is now with the Lakers, because that's a big thing that's being talked about. And LeBron James is already getting upset with the haters and tweeting about it.
Yeah, did he delete that, or did he? One of them he deleted, but it was something about the ages and everybody being like, it was to keep that same energy tweet essentially.
Yep. And which would be so funny, because I can guarantee you this right now: if the Lakers bounce in the first round, second round of next year, and everyone's like, too old, LeBron's gonna be upset about it. And it's gonna be like, you told us to keep the same energy, bro. Like, you asked us to do it.
I mean, of course he will, but
yeah.
I mean, the Lakers, like you said, it's kind of funny, but I mean, that's how these veteran squads work sometimes. It's a lot of guys who, are knowing, I think in the case of Russ and Melo, both of them know that they want championships. This could be one of their last chances to get it. You want to team up with a team that won the title 2 years ago. You ideally get LeBron back healthy. You get Anthony Davis back fully healthy. They retooled the roster a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, a lot of the guys aren't there anymore with Kuzma out and Montrezl Harrell out. So they've definitely shaken things up a bit. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope out as well, but they got a couple of their guys back as well. Talon Horton-Tucker signed his deal, so he's one of their younger guys that they still have around. Hopefully, they can get a little more development out of him. I guess the question to me again remains: I want to see Anthony Davis play a lot more 5 this year, which it seems to be hinted that that's going to happen. That to me is going to be the key to a lot of the Lakers' success, but. I like most of these signings. I mean, like we said, Melo's coming in on a 1-year deal. I think he understands his role. We'll see. It just, a lot of it depends how Russ works out.
Yeah. It's still a lot of shooting woes in my mind of how are you going to get the spacing going and what will the lineups be and all this stuff we won't know until the season starts, which is fine. It's just something I do wonder, of how you kind of get that going and if it can work. And it's a lot of big names, and we'll leave it at that,
Well, they brought Dwight Howard back too,
which so, I was honestly kind of bummed from a Sixers standpoint. I kind of wanted him back. I thought he was good for the locker room and a veteran presence.
I loved what Dwight did off the court, without a doubt. I thought he was like you said, a great presence in the locker room all year long. Great relationship with the fans, really brought the energy. All these are sentences that I never in a billion years, at least as recently as 3 years ago, thought I'd be saying about Dwight Howard. I mean, we'll get into it in a little bit. I mean, I thought they were going to kind of replace him with a little bit more of a big who could, kind of play the stretch five role, somebody who could give them a little bit of a different look when Embiid is out. And instead, they signed Andre Drummond. So we'll get into the Sixers in a little bit because, that is something.
Yeah.
But
Well, and
yeah,
Embiid's going to have to do some Twitter scrubbing because, I mean, he literally was talking about how he's like got real estate in Drummond's head.
well,
So
they leaned into it at least in the
yeah,
caption. They said that they were going to build real estate together. But like I said, we'll get back into the Sixers in a little bit. I do want to talk about Miami. Obviously, the big sign and trade with Kyle Lowry, him leaving Toronto, coming to Miami,
which
looking to give a
is
boost to Jimmy Butler and be that third guy alongside Jimmy and Bam.
Which, by the way, the NBA, I don't know if there was a follow up to that, but I saw they were looking into potential tampering stuff between that one and
The
the
Bulls
ball.
with Lonzo Ball.
Yeah. So, from what I was hearing on ESPN the other day, is they were talking about how essentially the reason this might have been able to happen so quick is because there was conversations about a trade before the All-Star game. So there might have already been some groundwork placed down anyway, which might have been how it went down, but it did happen very quickly. And you just kind of wonder if something did go on there. I did count, by the way, the Heat and Lakers have the same amount of transactions. I believe it's 8 for free, technically under free, quote unquote free agency. So both the teams making the most moves, at least, of any team in the NBA.
Yeah, with the Lakers, we didn't even talk about Caruso, but we'll talk about him
Yeah.
in a little bit when we get to Chicago because Chicago was super active. In terms of the Heat, I love the Lowry pickup. Obviously, he and Jimmy Butler have a great relationship. I think he's going to fit in. I mean, he's going to play an enhanced version of the Goran Dragic role, essentially.
Did you
Um,
see Dragic's comments about being in
about not wanting to play
Toronto?
in Toronto.
So I wonder what
Look,
goes on there.
no, so I don't. Raptors fans took slight at that, and I understand it because when you look at it on paper, it's like, yo, don't take a shot at my city. But
Sure.
I didn't even really think that was a shot at Toronto, the city. I thought it was a shot at, hey, the Raptors just traded Kyle Lowry. They're clearly not in win now mode. They're in more of a retooling and a rebuild and kind of a youth movement type deal. I'm Goran Dragic. I want to go chase a title. I've
Sure.
been in the league for a long time. I just made a finals run with Miami.
Sure.
He's trying to go to a contender. I think that's fair to say if I'm Goran Dragic and I'm at the twilight of my career to say that, hey, I'm not really interested in playing for a rebuilding team right now. I wouldn't take that
He,
personally if I was Toronto. I think that he would say that about a number of teams in the NBA.
well, let's stay with the Heat because you just made me think of a question. If you had to pick from viewing free agency and where we're at right now, if you had to pick, say, 3 teams that are now in a quote unquote rebuild, maybe broke it down a little bit, what 3 would you put it at?
That are rebuilding and that are coming
Sure.
out of the rebuild.
That are maybe even starting a rebuild.
I mean, I think Toronto is there. Toronto is
Okay.
the obvious one. I
Mhm.
think Scotty Barnes, even going back to the draft, I think that was that was a potential pick. That's a guy that they're going to develop a little bit. I mean, the rumors are floating there around too with Pascal Siakam. I don't think Siakam is necessarily going to get moved. But that would obviously not be a win now mode or win now move necessarily either. I mean,
I've
I
got
think they're.
I've
I'm
got
sorry.
one
Go ahead.
more. I've got one other team I would add to that. So if you look at teams that have moved the most people, which is actually kind of surprising. If you were to, and I'm just trying to do the math real quick, which isn't going to work. But this team is definitely in a rebuild now. Would be the Spurs.
Yeah, 100%. I think the Spurs, as soon as they moved from DeRozan, it basically hinted that they're in a rebuild mode. I think
Yeah.
that's something they kind of should have
I
been
mean,
in a while. I mean, they traded
well, yeah.
LaMarcus Aldridge last year too. He was a big part of, was he and DeRozan were a part of them winning games. Now
Yeah.
both of them are gone. I think they're fully going into youth mode too. So I think that they're embracing that. And then the third one to me would be Washington. Now Washington's is different, obviously,
Yeah.
because you have Bradley Beal. He's already a star type player. I know the rumors are out there, but for all indications, Bradley Beal wants to be in Washington. He's going to stay in Washington. They've got a couple of younger guys. They obviously retooled the roster a lot with getting Dinwiddie and then with the trade with the Lakers that we talked about a little bit earlier. So I think that it's a different type of rebuild necessarily. Like, I don't think Washington is going for draft picks necessarily right
Sure.
now, but I think that they definitely shifted their direction, if you will, a little bit.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you in that, where it seems like the most players, those three would be the teams that you can kind of say are going into a rebuild that may have not been in it last year. Although I think a lot of people would say the Wizards kind of had to be, but weren't, because they had Westbrook.
They pushed for 8. When they
They did.
traded, as soon as they traded for Russ, that's not a
They did.
rebuild move. Like, when they put
Yeah.
Russ and Bradley Beal together, now give the Wizards credit. I think the Wizards realized that that team probably achieved as much as they were going to last year. I mean, that run they had in the second half was great for them to battle into the playoffs. Like, you can definitely hang your head on that a little bit, but I don't think anyone had any remote delusions of that team making a run and going on a title run. I think if they want to do that around Bradley Beal, they had to retool it a little bit, and they did that with
Agree.
trading Russ. So, and then, I mean, I think there are other teams in the league who are just still in the midst of it. I think there are teams who are, going to take the next steps sooner than later. Like for Detroit, for example, Detroit already had a couple of good young guys, but now with Cade Cunningham, who already looks great, we'll get into summer league in a little bit, but that's somebody who I think is ready to take the next steps in the rebuild. I think Orlando is potentially that now with Jalen Suggs in the mix, if he's that one guy.
How do you
Charlotte's another one who I think they already kind of had. They had a little bit of their coming out party last year, but I think they could make a real run at the playoffs this year for sure.
I agree. How do you feel about the Olynyk move for the Pistons, though, bringing
Uh,
him in?
I think it's a fine move. I mean, Olynyk's a solid vet. He's been a decent role player in a number of different spots now with Boston, with Miami, and even in Houston last year when he finished there at the end of the season. So Detroit's got to spend money somewhere. You know what I mean? And so to that
Sure.
point, Detroit's not exactly trying to win now. Like by the time that Kelly Olynyk he gets in, I mean, this is a 3-year deal. Yeah, I think you immediately are a little shocked when you see $37 million.
Yeah.
But in 1 or 2 years when they're making a push at the playoffs, I don't really think it's going
Over.
to matter, you know?
Yeah, I get you. I just think 37 million was kind of like, whoa, money,
Yeah, no,
you
it was
know?
definitely a big number. I mean, good for Duncan Robinson getting paid from the Heat too. Before we get off the Heat,
Yes, yes.
I mean, $89 million. Shooting the basketball is just such a wonderful skill to have in today's NBA. Shout out to
Yeah.
Norm Powell too. Norm Powell get 90 from Portland. Portland, he's a guy who they traded for last year, obviously. I think that's a good signing for them. I think regardless of whatever happens with this team, he's a guy that they should want to stick around. Good for Norm getting that big
Well,
payday, 5-year deal.
the one that kind of surprised me, and I do want to switch over to the Bulls here in a second because DeMar is probably my second one that kind of surprised me. Duncan Robinson, 89.9 million for 5 years does, and I get it, shooting's important, but that does seem a little high for a guy that's really just shooting, like that's obviously what you want out of him. It just seems like a good chunk of cash on a team that's already got a lot of scoring potential, but I know he's a big part of it. So I'm gonna have to just sit back and think that one, I think, solo. But on top of that, the other two, there's 3 contracts that I kind of highlighted that surprised me, at least sticker shock-esque wise, is Jarrett Allen getting 5 years, 100 million, especially when the Cavs used the number 3 pick on a player that plays a similar position. So that kind of surprised me a little bit, and maybe you can get them to work together, but it's a little confusing. And then Evan Fournier, love the guy, but 4 years, 78 million with the Knicks is kind of that's like a lead the team kind of thing,
Yeah, I'll get back to Fournier in a sec, because I have no idea what the Knicks are doing there on that front. That's a lot of money for Evan Fournier, and I've seen a lot of Evan Fournier in Orlando.
Of
Listen, he does
course,
things well. He can get you buckets. Like he's a good scorer, but what are the Knicks doing in terms of their cap with spending that type of money on Evan
sure.
Fournier? I thought they got Randall on a great deal if he plays like he did last year,
Hmm.
but it feels like they want to stay flexible, and that's just kind of a weird place to spend.
Well,
Like,
with you're talking about Fournier.
Yeah,
Or
I'm talking
yeah.
about Fournier.
So something I was reading about, because I kind of had the same feeling, and I was like, there's got to be something going on, because the Knicks, at least in the recent past, have been doing really good moves. So there got to be something. And I was reading, I think it was SB Nation's Knicks SB Nation site. They were talking about how the team has a bunch of options into the third season of Derrick Rose, Nerlens Noel, Burks contracts, and then the same as Evan Fournier. So like they've paid a lot of money, but they do have a team option, so they kind of protect themselves in a way. So they can at least help themselves with that. But it just seems like a lot of money to throw at a guy.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised because the Knicks aren't. We just talked about a Linux. That's not a Detroit situation. Like the Knicks were good last year. They're trying
Yeah,
to build off that.
for
It, it,
sure.
it did was a little jarring as well. The Bulls are interesting because the Bulls had such an up and down season, and I'll get back to Jarrett Allen in a sec. Um, I love the Lonzo Ball signing. Like I think Lonzo Ball was completely misutilized in New Orleans by Stan Van Gundy. And the fact that they were able to bring him in for 4 years, $80 million. I mean, he's still 23 years old.
Yeah,
He's not a great shooter, but he's not a terrible one either. And he does a lot else to be that you would love. I mean, he's one of the better passers in the league. He's a really solid defender. Like, I'm still have a lot of stock
sure.
in Lonzo Ball. I think that's exactly the type of signing that you want to put next to Zach LaVine. Alex Caruso got a lot of money, but I'm cool with that signing too as well.
Sure.
I thought that makes sense if you have him playing in the backcourt. Obviously, we know he's a guy who can play on a championship team. He played a ton of minutes for the Lakers. Giving him 37 million. I mean, you got to again shout out to Caruso, a great development story there. Talk about getting it out of the mud. DeRozan's contract, though, I'm with you. That really threw me. I mean, number one, not the 85 million necessarily, because he's one of the best mid-range scorers in the league. I think only Jokic. Oh man, it was maybe I think it was Jokic and Embiid have scored more points from
Wow.
two than DeRozan in the last 3 seasons. I know Jokic was one of them for sure. I think the other was Embiid. Regardless, it was a big man. I'll have to look that back
Last
up.
3 seasons?
Yeah, it was the last three
Let's see if I
seasons.
can find it quick.
But it's interesting with DeRozan, just because all indications were that he wanted to go to a contender. And while I think Chicago will be better with the additions that they made,
Hmm.
I don't necessarily think that Chicago's a contender anytime soon. Now, granted, DeMar DeRozan is how old is he now? He's 32 years old now. This is
Yeah.
a 3-year contract. This is likely his last payday. And he's made a
Right.
ton of money in his NBA career. So I understand that. And he's got the type of game where I don't think he's going to bounce out of the league in 3 years. Like DeMar DeRozan was a great athlete in his prime, but his game is not based on his athleticism. Like he does a lot of other things well in terms of how he can create his own offense. So to that point, I guess he'll still have time to ring chase a little bit. I just thought he would do it a little bit more here, like having been in so many competitive situations with Toronto and then kind of catching the tail end of San Antonio. Like I thought he'd want to make a title run because he's in his 30s now. But again, I'm not going to knock that payday either. You got a lot of money from Chicago.
Yeah, but I think he went the opposite of what he was saying in the public. Like he kept talking about how he was ready to go win something, and that's no knock on the Bulls, but I just don't think that they're at that spot yet. And the combination of DeRozan, Levine, Vuk, and Lonzo Ball doesn't really scream like spacing to me. There's not like a lot of shooting there in the fact that DeMar DeRozan shoots 28% from three. He needs the ball in his hand, but you need to give touches to the other guys. So then when they're doing their thing, what's DeRozan going to be doing? And that's the kind of questions that are going to come up, because in terms of development, you want Levine and Lonzo Ball developing, and so I think that's going to be a very odd situation, an odd way to go about it. But I can't hate on a guy for going and getting his last potential big payday, and so if that's what you're going to do, that's what you're going to do. And we'll see how it goes. Maybe it clicks more than we thought. Maybe he gets in the gym and develops the 3-point shot, and oh my God, here we go.
He's 32 years old. He's not gonna he's not a bad 3-point shooter, but I don't think DeMar DeRozan is getting in the gym and developing anything at this point. I do think Chicago will be better. I mean, there's talent on that
Hmm.
line. That backcourt's solid. Like that backcourt is objectively better. Like you said, Nick Vucevic is still there.
Yeah.
I don't know what their ceiling is. I don't think they're better than Brooklyn or Milwaukee. Certainly, I don't think they're better than Philly. I don't think they're better than Miami now with Kyle Lowry. I don't think they're better than Atlanta. So at that point, it becomes a little more of a toss-up.
Well,
But
and there is a lot of talk about Lauri Markkanen and what's going on there. You know what I mean? I almost wonder why or if there was conversations in the ball talks if Markkanen was on the table.
yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
it seems like by all indications that he is, and there are a number of teams who should be taking a flyer on Laurie Markkanen if he's truly available.
Of
It
course.
seems like things have gone sour with the Bulls
Yeah.
camp. He scrubbed everything off Bulls related off his Instagram, which we know how that is in 2021. But I think there are plenty of teams who should correctly take a shot at Laurie Markkanen, a guy who hasn't necessarily been as good as he was his rookie year, but still very young, still a lot of potential there. I mean, he's just 24 years old. I'm interested to see. Obviously, he's a restricted free agent. I'm interested to see if Chicago matches that. But somebody will throw money at Laurie Markkanen. Jarrett Allen, going back to that point, I mean, yeah, $100 million is a lot of money for Jarrett Allen. And I like Jarrett Allen. Like, I think him and Mobley is a solid front court for Cleveland. Like, I don't think they're going to play together necessarily
Sure.
moving forward, but I'm okay with that rotation. Like, I love the Cleveland move, or the way that they were able to insert themselves in that original Brooklyn trade to get Jarrett Allen and bring him in. I agree. It does seem a little jarring when you just spend the number 3 pick on Evan Mobley, who's ideally that guy. But Mobley's also on his rookie contract, so I think you have a little bit of flexibility there. A lot of Cleveland's guys are younger. You haven't really had to pay a ton of them yet. Though again, this is a 5-year deal, so this isn't something that they're just going to be off the books of right away.
Yes, and that's kind of the question I have with it. Now, I have another player in mind that got a lot of money in free agency that I think people are like, yeah, that makes sense. But I still think there should be some potential questions about it. And it's Chris Paul. He got 4 years, $120 million.
Mm-hmm.
Of obviously the impact with the Suns, nobody can debate it. It was awesome, and he deserves that. But he'll almost be 40 by the time 4 years from now is up. And he is not necessarily the healthiest guy during most of this, like during seasons past. There's a lot of injury history here. So
yeah,
I'm in a weird spot where I'm like, I totally agree he deserves the money. I get it. But with an injury history like that, with him potentially being 40 years old by the time this is up, should there be some concern?
No, you have to do it. It's just a situation. I mean, it's the same thing that I think with Miami with Jimmy Butler. Obviously, Jimmy's not as old as Chris Paul is,
Right.
but you have to pay them. I mean, the guy just took you to the finals last year. I understand there's the risk with his injuries, but here's the reality: he's still elite when he's playing. I think Chris Paul is the type of game that it is clearly translated for a long time. He's 36 years old. He's one of those guys that he's firmly in the LeBron camp at this point. Is like, I'm not going to believe he stopped being good until I actually see it with my own eyes. Do I think there's a risk that the last 2 years of those contracts look terrible? Absolutely. Is that the risk that you take to keep your window open and try to run it back for these next 1 or 2 years? Yeah, I think you have to if you're Phoenix.
And I think a big part, the counter argument to the hate on the money wise is too the younger guys that are on your team, Ayton, Bridges, Booker have all spoken so highly of Chris Paul. You have to bring him back. And I believe I actually just saw that they did a depth play with Elfrid Payton. I think they're bringing him back as well.
How on earth did you weave? I mean, I knew he signed there, but that was masterful, honestly, weaving him into that situation. I mean, Devin Booker, they already paid, so that's the thing with Book is like Book is he's already signed his big contract.
Listen, when you can have a guy as a backup point guard in a depth play that recorded 5 straight triple doubles last year, I mean, I can't hate on it.
I think there is no one more relieved by that than Knicks fans. I think Knicks fans are so happy that Thibodeau won't find a way to put Elfrid Payton in the starting lineup anymore.
Did you see that? Oh man, who was it? There was an NBA player practicing with like a hand, like on, it was like a hat, but the hand came down on his face. And he was practicing shooting. And someone's comment was, Alfred Payton played like this for years and it didn't help. I was like, no.
They're shooting at your boy. Why are they? It's like a gif from The Godfather. Why did they have to massacre? Look how they massacred my boy.
Yeah, I gotta find out who that was. And I bet if I search like NBA player shooting with hand in face.
Yeah, Devin Booker is through Phoenix. He's signed in Phoenix through 2024. Chris Paul will have 1 year after that contract. DeAndre Ayton is obviously going to be the next one to get paid. He's a restricted free agent next year, but it's going to be in a situation where, you have to pay a lot of money to keep this core together. They just went to the finals last year. I'm not exactly about to break it up either. And in the case of Book and Ayton, they should likely get better. The Jarrett Allen contract too. Again, not to totally be jumping around with that.
I know we're all over the place.
I think they're going to end up moving it down the line. That's just the reality. So it could be an Olynyk type situation where you pay a lot of money now and then move it. John Collins got $125 million from Atlanta. I think that was probably a lock given how the playoffs went. I was a little surprised even going into last year because I thought Atlanta gambled with this qualifying offer. I thought somebody would, kind of push Atlanta to see if they were going to have to make that decision. But then Atlanta went and did it on their own. So, they have a lot of money tied up over the next few years, but this is a team that were just in the conference finals, and John Collins was a big part of that young core. So, doing business.
And from Collins' side of things, because, he was a little upset with the team before the season started last year.
Oh, yeah.
Those are gone. You're taking the money. You got to run it back. Like, there's no part of me that looked at that weird. Like, you totally got to do it. So I completely agree. And, Lou Williams was another one that they kept, and Solomon Hill. It makes total sense. Same with Blake Griffin. Just bring him back again for the Nets. And Patty Mills going to the Nets, I think, will be kind of cool.
That's such a damn good signing for Brooklyn. Brooklyn is going to be so good. Like, I hate to just be like, hey, the whole NBA season's a wash. But if Brooklyn's healthy, I don't know who on earth is going to beat that squad.
The Lakers.
I mean, no, I don't think so. I don't even know. It's crazy. I'll ask you this before we get into who's balling, who's falling. So I was having this debate at work the other day. Is this the first time in a while that the East might be better than the West?
Is it?
The West has been better for years. It's been
course.
Years and years that the West has been better. You can still probably argue that 1 through 8 in the West might be better. But if I'm looking at the top end of talent, defending champion Milwaukee's in the East. Brooklyn, who I think is going to be the favorite next year, is in the East. Miami got a lot better on paper. They look to be, better than they were last year, and this is a team who's fresh off a finals appearance. The Sixers have a big question mark with Ben Simmons, but depending how that plays out, regardless, this was a team that was the number 1 seed last year. Obviously, you've got Atlanta now more experienced and ready to compete. That's 5 right there without even thinking. That's not even counting if the Knicks come back strong. In the Western Conference, both the LA teams should be good, but we may not get Kawhi Leonard the whole season, so that obviously caps the Clippers. Denver, we may not get Jamal Murray the whole season, so I think that caps them a little bit. At that point, you're looking at Phoenix, you're looking at Utah, and you're looking at the Lakers at the top.
I would say Mavericks too, right? We expect them to make a run.
The Mavericks got to keep building on what they did last year, and they brought Tim Hardaway Jr. back, and obviously you have Luka, but the question is the surrounding moves. Warriors depends what Klay Thompson does. We got to see what Klay Thompson does. Depends what the young guys do. But they would be the one that I think have that upside, obviously, with given how Steph played last year, how good Dre still is defensively, and some of the other rotation guys they have. But I don't know. None of those teams strike the fear into me the way that Brooklyn and Milwaukee both do.
I think yes, I guess if we're comparing them to them, yes. But I think, the Jazz and the Suns, and I know you were talking about injuries with the Nuggets, but I think they're right back in it, right back there as a team that can compete. And in theory, if they can just continue to develop what they've been doing, and, the Jazz adding Rudy Gay and Hassan Whiteside, I'm interested to see how that changes their lineups and their implementation of those guys, So, yes, I agree with you from the standpoint. I think if you were to take the top 3 teams that you would be scared of or you think could contend next year, two of them will probably be in the East. Because I'd be willing to bet the top three, if you were to poll at all NBA fans, the top three most popular picks would probably be the Lakers, the Nets, and Milwaukee.
Yeah,
I think those would be the top three.
Yeah, I think. I mean, when the Vegas odds come out, I definitely think those will be. I mean,
I wonder if they are.
Brooklyn opened as soon as it ended as the favorite, and they
Eh,
rightfully should be. I mean, if I'm Brooklyn, I'm looking at this season and going, "Hey, if Kyrie doesn't turn his ankle, we very well are where
yeah.
Milwaukee is right now." So, I mean, again, if the Brooklyn, the only thing that's stopping them to me is health. They drafted
So,
well. Patty Mills is great. Getting Blake back was huge.
okay, this is kind of cool. So the 2022 NBA championship odds, this was updated 19 hours ago, so a day ago as of recording this. So 8:10. The top 3 are LA, Nets, and Bucks in that order. LA Lakers and the Nets are 3-1 odds. Bucks are 9-1. Can you guess who's the next? It should surprise you.
It should surprise me.
Yeah.
It better not be the Sixers. I'm gonna be mad. I'm gonna be
No.
mad for them. We didn't even mention Boston in that Eastern Conference, which feels pretty like ridiculous. And
We
Kemba
were
going back to New York.
I agree. The Sixers are 7th on this list and actually tied with the Clippers. So that kind of gives you two teams that aren't there.
Yeah. What is it? It should be Phoenix, right?
Phoenix is right above them at 14-1, but there's one team in between the Bucks and the Suns at 10-1 odds.
Is it Utah?
The Utah Jazz are below the 76ers.
That feels odd.
They're tied with the Nuggets, who are also below the Sixers, but both teams are above the Heat. So, take that for what it is.
Who am I missing? We even said that. We didn't say Denver.
I'm telling you, man, that you're gonna be like, wow.
Is it the Knicks?
No. The Knicks they're pretty far down. They're actually tied with the Bulls.
Did we say Atlanta? Is it Atlanta?
Atlanta is below. They're at 25-1 odds, just a little bit worse than the Mavericks, which
is it the Warriors?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I believe it. The upside is still there. It's just getting Clay
at
back.
10-1 though.
I mean, I agree. I wouldn't.
Does Klay Thompson actually fix all of their problems that they have? I mean, I get it. There were some injuries. There's other injury stuff that won't be a factor, but does it?
I mean, dude, they looked real dangerous without Klay last year. Like, that's just the thing. And it's more of the respect that I have for him and Steph than anything. No, the short version is I don't think Klay Thompson remotely fixes all of their problems, but if he's as good as he was pre-injury, it helps a lot. And that conference is beaten up. Like you said, there are a lot of teams dealing with injuries. So the opportunity will be there. I don't think they should be above some of those squads necessarily, but look, I understand it.
Can you, all right, before we get into balling and falling, can you pick the team that has the least likely odds?
Oh, to win the title next year? Oh boy. It's not. I feel like it's gonna be like OKC or Cleveland or like Houston or Sacramento.
You are one of those is right.
Who we got? Who we got? Houston.
Houston is second to last at 300-1.
So Cleveland.
Cleveland is 200-1.
It's not Minnesota, is it?
Minnesota is 150-1.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say it should be Minnesota. That's ridiculous.
No.
So who are the other two I just said? Who is it? OKC.
Yes, OKC is 500-1.
Yeah, I mean that's fair. OKC. I mean the best player is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's a really good young player, but the theme of OKC right now is all those draft picks. I mean, who's left? Who's on that roster? They don't even have Kemba. It'd be different a little bit if they have Kemba, but Kemba's in New York now. But that gets us right into who's balling, who's falling. Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before the bad. Really, it's Kemba Walker, but it's also in tandem with the Knicks social media team. They smoked his welcome back to New York welcome intro video. I'm not going to play it here on the pod, But check that out on the Knicks official Twitter feed. They did a great job welcoming him home. Obviously, a big get for the Knicks. They're super excited to have Kemba and hope that he can play like he did in the second half of last year when he played a lot better for Boston.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he can do. I think that a lot of people have given up on Kemba, and I'm not ready to do that yet. I want to see what he can do, and maybe it just wasn't a good fit for him, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
So
we knew he was going to play in OKC. I think
yeah,
he's probably a little overpaid at this point, but I mean, this is a guy who's been pretty underrated his whole career. I'm not about to
yeah.
rule out that he could still pull another rabbit out of the hat. All right, who's balling for you this week?
Udonis Haslem returning to the Miami Heat for a 1-year, $2.6 million deal, his 19th NBA season with the franchise.
Shout out to my pal Chase Bunker on Twitter at Chase Bunker. He was on here once, and he's actually up in Jacksonville with Justin now. Chase tweeted earlier something like Udonis Haslem is going to be 90 years old and signing a 1-year deal with the Miami Heat in like 2055 or something ridiculous like that, and still being on this roster. I mean, good. Listen, man, good for Udonis. Obviously, he's a staple of that roster at this point. He's so much bigger than a player for them. Um, and obviously, Miami loves him a lot to keep giving him a roster spot year in and year out. It's not exactly, I mean, what's he seen? Like a combined
Not
25 minutes
much.
of game action maybe in the last 3
Yeah,
seasons. Like he's not really playing.
yeah.
He's essentially an extended coach at this point. And that's almost, I guess, where I'm surprised a little bit is that Udonis Haslam just hasn't fully transitioned into an
It's just
assistant coach at this
transition.
point. But
Just
I
be a
mean,
coach.
he's
Don't
in a
take a
battle.
roster spot.
He's in a battle with LeBron. He's trying to really outlast that and be the
Yeah.
last man standing in that '03 draft class. But obviously, shout out to Udonis, a
I
Miami
was
legend.
I was in 5th grade when he entered the NBA.
Wow.
Mhm.
I mean that's how it's going to be. I mean, when LeBron hangs it up and when Carmelo hangs it up, and I mean to a lesser extent Chris Paul, but those two especially
Yeah,
when they hang it up for real, it's going to be
wild.
I don't know much NBA without them. Put it that
Yeah.
way. It was kind of I felt that way too when Kobe retired, when Dirk retired. Tim Duncan most recently, all those guys. All right, Fallen is for both of us, and I think it probably surprises no one. It's Dennis Schroeder, who just signed a 1-year deal with Boston, $5.9 million. I really don't want to pile on Dennis Schroeder because I know he's, according to the reports, is going through it right now. But man, he turned down 80 million from the Lakers in the middle of the last season. Just unfortunately not a great playoff run, totally sunk his value. And he's essentially on a 1-year prove-it deal again now with Boston. He still could earn himself a lot of money down the line, but listen, it's a big difference between 80 and $6 million essentially. Um, it's just it's sad because I'm all about betting on yourself.
Sure.
And I mean, look at a guy like Freddie Van Vliet is the most infamous, or not infamous, but the most notorious one recently for, he bet on himself. He was undrafted and he made a ton of money with the Raptors. Like he signed that massive $100+ million contract. He's the ultimate success story. There also are other sides to that. Like with a guy like Nerlens Noel, for example, is another one where he got a massive contract offer. I think it was $70 million from Boston, or not from Boston, from Dallas when he was on the Mavericks. And he turned it down, and he was playing on minimums for a while. And now
Mhm.
Nerlens has rehabilitated his value, especially with the Knicks last year. But you hope Dennis can do that in Boston. But that's just, I mean, there's no way he's feeling good right now about that.
It makes it worse because at the beginning of the offseason, or maybe it was during the finals, it came out that he wanted $100+ million
Yeah.
contract. And everyone was like, why do you want that much? And now here we are at 6, and it's not even technically 6, it's 5.9.
Oh, we're $94 million off from that.
Yes. And on top of that, the entire internet has turned it into a talking point. At least NBA social media has. And
Well,
so that's got to make it even harder, you know?
yeah, it's just a massive L for you being played out
Yeah,
in public. And again, he has the chance to rehabilitate this,
sure.
but there's nothing you can, I mean, just look at the books and it's hard to sit on that one. There's no doubt about it.
I
Little
mean,
tough
listen,
break there.
and there'll be someone that's like, oh, whatever, $6 million is still a ton of money. It's like, fine, but it's not $84 million. And
You can
That's like
blow $6 million, $84 million you can blow, but you gotta try to blow $84 million.
you're like working on it at that point. Like, could you imagine going into a casino and losing that much money? Like,
I
that's
would jump
essentially
off
what
said
happened.
casino.
Right. It's over. I'm done. I'm not,
I'm not
and
kidding.
that's why, like, seriously, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, sports therapists and stuff like that. Like, this is one of those situations where I would, one, get a new agent, and two, go get a therapist to, like, let's talk this out. I need to talk. I need to vent. I need you to offer advice. So,
It's been
you
a
know,
roller coaster. I mean, Dennis Schroeder is the guy who's coming off winning Sixth Man of the Year. Like he's had a lot of peaks and valleys here in the past few years.
yeah,
You know, hopefully he settles it out a little bit, and you know, like we said, has a chance to make more money. We know NBA careers can be short. Dennis Schroeder is not a bad NBA player. He's not going to bounce out of the league. So I think
no,
that's
he's good.
so be good in that regard. Summer League is happening right now in Vegas, ongoing as we speak. I think we're on day 3 or 4 as we're recording this.
Hmm.
I don't, you know, it is summer league. I know we have to immediately overreact to everything. Duh. What else do you do in NBA summer league? But have you been watching a little bit? I guess is anything in your limited viewing of summer league so far? Anything in particular that stood out to you?
No, I mean, I was excited to see Orlando play. That got me excited, obviously, to see Suggs. I think it was last night, if I'm not mistaken, you had Cunningham and Jalen Green go up against each other. So it was just kind of
Yeah,
good to see the big names do their thing. I believe the Rockets won that one. Not that that matters at all. You know, it's just cool. And obviously, like, um, you know, there's been talk about Mitchell playing really good defense and all these things. So it's just kind of the overhype train in a way for summer league, where everyone's going to be super hyped about their picks, and I haven't heard anybody being like, "Oh, they're not necessarily living up to the hype." I think what was it? Emmanuel Mudiay played the other night, and it was and did really well. There's certain names that I'm just like, wait, why are these guys playing? So
bro, it's crazy with Emmanuel Mudiay because he's still so young. I think he's
yeah,
25 years old. He's been in the league. He's been in and out of the league. I feel like for 7 years now.
yeah. Well,
Um,
and Bol played. I was reading 33 points. He played really well. So it's like, but like to me, it's like those are the players that should be playing well. They have the NBA experience, and now they're just kind of like honing in on it a little bit in summer league, and almost kind of being the welcome to the NBA kind of guys. You know?
Yeah, Michael Beasley was there for Portland. I know Twitter
Yep.
was talking about that for a little bit. I mean, the only big takeaway I have is that that Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green showdown was awesome.
That's fun.
Really, really fun. Both of those guys have certainly lived up to the hype so far. Jalen Green scoring prowess just looks phenomenal. If again, don't want to overreact, but both of those guys looking like they can be franchise changers
Sure.
legitimately in both of those cities, both of those franchises. Excited to continue to watch them play and develop. And kind of the same how I feel about these other younger guys. Like I know that's like the most generic statement of all time, but I don't really want to get too hot takey. I do want to get back out to Vegas eventually someday for summer league, but
Yeah.
it's still with COVID, man. I'm good. I'm vaccinated and all that, but I don't really feel the need to
So
be in that situation just yet.
So get this, my buddy is actually going out there,
Hmm.
and part of my groomsman gift I'm getting for the wedding, is I am going to put $20 on each of my buddy's favorite teams to win the said championship finals, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, like, I think I might have mentioned this already, but like for my buddy that's up in Pennsylvania, I'm gonna put 20 on the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. And TJ, who's a big Giants fan, I'm gonna put 20 on the Giants to win. And
They're already $40 just gone. Just no chance for either of those things happening.
but
So,
my thinking is, okay, I've shotgunned it. There's 7 of you with 7 different teams. Somebody's got to hit and win enough money for us to all go crazy and go back to Vegas or something, you know?
bro, you gotta find some. I mean, you've been in Florida long enough. Find a Bucks fan. You gotta find somebody in
No
Kansas
Bucks
City. I know
fans.
your new shout to the Newbie Brothers podcast. Your boy Tank's a Kansas
Yeah.
City Chiefs fan. So
Yeah, we I think the closest I've got is I've got a Dolphins fan.
And that's so disrespectful to Miami, and I don't mean it to be because the Dolphins are actually going to be pretty all right this
Yeah,
year. But
pretty all right.
well, I mean, it depends on Tua. That's the thing. The Dolphins could be good. Like genuinely, they could be a playoff team. If
Sure,
Tua sucks, though, they also could be
it's
pretty
over.
bad.
Dude,
So I'm
I'm
not.
telling you right
Like I need
now,
to see it.
I'm telling you right now, like with all my buddies, if any of their teams are hitting a stride, I'm gonna be like, oh my god, like I'm gonna start
You're gonna be
panicking.
like me when the Hawks ended up in the Eastern Conference
Yeah.
Finals, and I just had to keep it a secret that we had a massive come up potentially
Well,
coming.
and on top of that, like I've got some buddies, like I have a few that are all from Philly, so like I don't want to like triple down on the Eagles. So like for
Yeah, that's a
one,
terrible decision.
right. And I'd also just like to keep it spread out so everybody still has a chance. Like my one buddy is a big Ohio State fan. So I'll put it on them to, win it all or something. And my other buddy kind of likes baseball more. So since we're halfway through, maybe I put it on the Phillies or something. You know what I mean? Like I'll just kind of change it up a little bit and
Oh,
we'll
the
have some
Phillies
fun
are
with
in
it.
first at least.
I know, which probably makes the bet not as great, but it should still be good. Like I would
I mean,
imagine.
The Phillies are far from favorites. Like
Yeah.
I think they're in a first place by like a game right now over Atlanta.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's not exactly. It's far from a lock. Put it that way. Even
Sure.
if the Phillies' only way into the playoffs is if they win the division, and they're far from the favorite to win in baseball this year. I mean, the whole NL West is just loaded right now with the
Yeah.
Giants and the Dodgers and the Padres. It's just absolutely
Crazy.
ridiculous. Thank you,
Mhm.
everybody, for listening to this episode of the Driving Dish NBA podcast. We appreciate you guys. I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed this episode. I know we don't usually talk post game like that, but we were all over the place a little bit. But it's exactly in the way that makes this pod fun. I think. Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, we are anywhere you can find a podcast: Stitcher, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Amazon Music, Spotify, Player FM, TuneIn. Whether you're driving into work, at work, working out at the gym, on a walk or something, you can listen to us.
Yep. And be sure to follow us on YouTube. YouTube, just search Drive and Dish, and we will pop up.